So it is Monday, February 7th, 2022.
Recording in progress.
It's 6:33 p.m. We're going to call the regular meeting of the St. Albans Town Selectboard to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you all for attending, staff and everyone online. We're going to start with agenda item number 2.
Actually, I apologize, I didn't tell you this about 2 hours ago. We realized that I would like to talk about a grant application for a stormwater project. So I'd like to amend the agenda, if that's acceptable, to just get some consensus from the board.
So we want to make a new agenda item 9C under the town manager's report, make it 9C, a stormwater grant, stormwater utility grant opportunity.
Correct.
Okay, so if someone could make the motion to amend the agenda to include 9C, a stormwater grant opportunity.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Any more amendments to the agenda?
No.
Perfect. Okay, Jonathan, you have the general fund warrants.
Okay, we have the general fund warrants dated February 3rd, 2022. In the amount of $57,058. Some insurance stuff on here. I see some preventative maintenance at the DPW garage from Avonda. Life insurance, pretty much general stuff. I make a motion we approve this warrant as stated.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Aaron, you got payroll?
I do, and I've got 3 payroll warrants today. The first one is dated January 21st, 2022, the amount of $21,216.45. The January 28th one is, January 28th, 2022, is in the amount of $40,789.52. That one I think had some agency checks on it that made it a little bit bigger. Was that a quarterly payment to retirement or? Okay. And then the last one is dated February 4th, 2022 in the amount of $26,377.21. I'll make a motion that we approve these 3 payroll warrants as stated.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Brian, you've got our miscellaneous warrants.
Alright, I've got a few here. First time through this, so excuse me if I mess it up royally. First one's for the stormwater utility warrant. Excuse me. Dated February 7th, 2022. The amount of $11,151, and all of that is for the watershed consulting. And I believe that's it.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to pass that warrant.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Brian's first warrant. Good.
There we go.
Never forget
Might as
it.
well go with the second one here. Also have a warrant for in the industrial park warrant for mission. You have to help me out with what that is.
Communication, I think it is.
Communication, okay. $563.40. Also dated February 7th, 2022. So make a motion that we pass that warrant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
Next one we have here is for the Stonehouse warrant, also dated February 7th, 2022, the amount of $2,715, of which $2,500 is for the United Way of Northwestern Vermont, and $215 for Gosselin Electric. I make a motion that we pass that warrant.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
And we got one more, it's a little thicker here.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Infrastructure development warrant, dated February 7th, 2022, in the amount of $98,249.84. The largest of those is for 36 cents less than 73,000. for Exteris, former math teacher, so. excuse me. And the rest are small things with town credit cards, the hundreds of dollars, WB Mason. Peterson Consulting at a little less than $8,000. Would you like me to read the rest, Brendan, or is that sufficient?
Have we all had a chance to go through
I
it?
went through that.
Yeah, Anna sent it to us, we reviewed it over the weekend, we're good. We won't run you too ragged.
Okay, so I make a motion that we pass that infrastructure development warrant.
Second.
Okay, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Great job, Brian. Thank you.
Six on there.
Definitely.
All right.
Okay, so we have minutes in front of us for Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. Anybody have any corrections? Hearing none, would anyone like to make a motion to accept those minutes?
Make a motion, we accept the minutes of January 19th, 2022.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
As always, thank you, Jen. Okay, so now we're on to public comment. We'll open up the virtual floor to public comment. I would say if you're here for something that's on the agenda a little later on, such as the update we're about to hear under the town manager's report about renaming or renumbering Village Drive, the report from Assistant Assessor Molly Maschер. You can definitely hold off and we'll take public comment at the end of Molly's report. That way we're all able to hear it. So if anyone would like to make a public comment unrelated to something further down on the agenda, please raise your hand or virtually raise your Zoom hand. Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 5, our certificate of highway mileage. We added Loomis Lane Ethel Court last year, so we have an updated mileage. So we need to approve it. Has everyone had a chance to review the certificate? Would anyone like to make a motion to accept it?
I'll make a motion that we accept it.
Perfect.
Second, sorry.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect, okay. Awesome, so now we're moving on quickly. Agenda item 6. We've had a vacant spot on the Development Review Board for a term that is going to expire in March of 2025. And we have received a very well written letter from someone in the community who would like to fill that position, Ellen Baker, who is Carrie's daughter.
Full disclosure. Yeah.
Full disclosure. So, Alan, do you have anything you'd like to add before we entertain a motion, or does any board member have a question for Alan?
I don't have anything to add other than I've always kind of loved volunteer work, so I'm just kind of looking to get involved.
So, the board would love to entertain a motion to appoint Ellen Baker to a term on the Development Review Board to expire in March 2025.
I'll make a motion, we appoint Alan Baker to the DRB for a term expiring April 2025.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's awesome, thank you. Hope you enjoy the work Jonathan started there. It's a good place to start.
We'll deliver the homework soon. I have a full packet from the zoning administrator. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Bye.
That's awesome. We have another appointment to make for agenda item 7, the Assistant Administrative Officer for the Zoning Office. We need to reappoint A.J. Johnson for a 3-year term to expire in February 2025.
I'll make a motion that we reappoint A.J. Johnson to the term of Assistant Administrative Officer for Zoning, in a term expiring February 2025.
Second it.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Okay, so the former honor wall, which is now the memorial wall, we have a recommendation from the memorial wall committee affirming a community nomination from former probate judge Larry Bruce to add Dr. Gould Sussland to the memorial wall. And if anybody would like to add anything or make a motion to accept that recommendation.
I was gonna say, reading the letter from Mr. Bruce, even if only half of these things were down, it's pretty impressive. It's a long list of things that he has done, so very impressive. Very thankful. I mean, I left a line in here that he said, of all these things that Dr. Sussland has done, what's most amazing is that they still have a lasting impact today, which is true with all those things. So, Bay Day and everything else. So amazing.
Thank you, Brian. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add, or would anyone like to make a motion?
So I just wanted to clarify, so you need a motion in order to accept him as the?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Right, I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation of, just make sure I read it right, to accept the recommendation of Gould Sussland for the memorial wall committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're on to the town manager's report. We have our assessor here to go over the equalization report.
Well, we do have Molly, but I was hoping Bill would be here as well in case there's any questions. And I kind of told him 6:45 to 7. So
So why don't we
if
move
we
on
could
to
just move.
yeah? So Molly, come on up, and then if Mr. Hinman surfaces during or after your report, we'll back.
Right, we will go back to that, and I can also briefly review the stormwater.
So I haven't been here since you got the tablets, but you have the map and everything scanned in, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, Jen told me that she'd send it to you. Okay, so Village Drive, I understand that it was renumbered and problems came up with it back in 2017. What didn't come up, I don't believe it came up in a select board meeting, was that it changes from Franklin Park West to Village Drive. And as you can see in the 911 booklet that I've included, section 31.010.001 addressing standards, section 2 road naming. Road name shall only change where there is a substantial intersection or at town boundaries. So the main thing tonight is Village Drive should really be a continuous road from Franklin Park West. It shouldn't even be Village Drive to begin with. So by changing it to Franklin Park West, those numbers would be changed. And I do have the new numbers all approved from the state, so that is all set if we go through with that. So that's the main thing, is I'd really like to see Village Drive become Franklin Park West. The other thing that I'd really like to happen, and it's not necessary right now because the 911 will be changing their standards for developments, is their driveways aren't facing Village Drive. So the houses on the edge of Village Drive have a Village Drive address, but their driveways are on the other side. So I'd like to have that be a new road along with the other section. I don't know. Do you have that one? Am I writing on it? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry. So technically, it depends on where the driveway is. So that's why I was suggesting to do the 2 new roads. Tyler at the state has informed me that bigger towns and cities such as Williston, they are making a new rule. So it will work with the way it is. If we kept those bottom houses like the 30, 47, 61, 69, so on as Sunrise, and the top houses switch to Franklin Park West. However, I'm not saying it's going to happen soon or if it will ever happen, but if the town does happen to take this development over, those roads are going to have to be named anyways.
Okay. So if we're gonna change addresses, we might as well do it right now to avoid further headaches down the road, is a suggestion? Am I
Yeah.
understanding that right?
Yep, I definitely think that the Franklin Park West has to be changed. I would really like to see the 2 new roads put in. I know that's extra work and struggle and it's annoying, but there's no other development in the town like this, and just to have it done properly, I think would be best for emergency vehicles and for town addressing period.
So the main thrust is it's for safety, in order for folks to get, for emergency vehicles to know exactly where to go.
Yeah, and I've exchanged some emails with some of the homeowners there, and they've all told me that they've been really lucky and ambulances and fire trucks have found them, which is extremely good, but this will ensure that they will get to the right place in the future.
Okay. So how would we go about creating names for the 2 new roads?
So after tonight, I also wanted to meet with the development, the HOA, because they would have to pick a few names and Tyler at the state would approve it. So I wouldn't be picking the names, but that would be on them to choose a name and to pay for a road sign since it is private.
Okay. So
So I was gonna just ask Molly, is it, what if we don't do it? What if we don't change the names?
If we don't do the roads, the 2 new roads right now, I mean, that's not the end of the world. If the town, like I said, does take it over, we will need to do it. So I just figured instead of another headache years down the road, even if I don't know if the town will ever take it over, but I think the main focus is that Franklin Park West into Village Drive should just be Franklin Park West. So those homes on the edge of the road have to change anyways.
right. And if you're gonna change it, you might as well do it in a way where you never have to do it again. Right.
Does that guideline, I mean, could we, to Brian's point, like as a town, make it, like if we couldn't, I'm just wondering, like, does the state supersede us
Yes.
on this? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't
Absolutely.
even, for Franklin Park West, don't have much of a choice in what
We really
do.
don't, they used to be more amenable, can't even think of the word right now, amenable
Yeah.
to some sort of subjective interpretation of these rules. They are pulling away any of that gray area and saying, this is a 911 effort, our rules trump yours. And frankly, I'd heard that this developer wanted the town to take these roads over as public roads. So it doesn't make sense to wait until the development expands more to do so. It seems like that would cause more of a headache when we know this needs to be changed now. And the fire chief supports this effort as well.
I do have a letter to the fire chief. I believe it came after I gave Jen packets. So I do have that, and I have talked to the state, and I have his support.
Are you talking to the state coordinator?
So we're gonna, you can explain that question, but we're gonna have people answer questions after the board gets done, but, she's talking about the state E911 coordinator, Tyler.
So, because I just want to be clear too, Molly, so we, if Carrie or whomever, we have to change it to Franklin Park Northwest? Or is there-
Yes, that road, so, I mean, I wasn't here back then, but I don't
Yeah.
even know why it was changed to Village
Yeah,
Drive,
I
'cause
see I see what you mean, because it's a road that goes and then without
It's
anything
contiguous.
else there beyond the
Right.
Missisquoi Valley Rail Trail
Mhm.
cutting through.
right,
The name just changed.
right,
Almost like, like
Yeah.
a million examples of that, where that could be something. So,
So if that one should be changed, and the 2 roads, I've talked to Tyler, if it's for sure, if the town's not gonna take it over, then we can live with that for this development. But if there's a chance that the town's gonna take it over, those roads are gonna have to be named. And if they're named, then they would have to properly be numbered.
So we've done phase takeovers of developments in Harborview and whatnot, and I think we could definitely see this development probably going the same route. It's always our goal to help private roads meet our acceptance standards as defined in our roads acceptance standard policy. So I think and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it would be the consensus of the board that we move forward with getting this road as totally correct as possible, so that if a future select board does decide to take it over, we don't have to put these homeowners through yet another address change. I guess my other question, and this is probably more for our public works director and town manager, we stop at the rail trail, but I think a good portion of what we have to change to Franklin Park West Road is up to our standard. Is that not the case?
We haven't, I don't think we've inspected Franklin Park, the proposed new section of the road, is that what you're saying?
Right.
I don't think we've inspected it, that I'm aware of, we weren't asked to. But the other road that was built by the same person in the same time largely was up to our standards, yes.
Okay. Okay, sir,
Could you use your mic, please?
what's that?
The mic. Can't hear you.
These
We
are just
cannot
for,
hear you at all.
so we actually have our meetings set up to be closed to in-person for the public. These microphones are only for the electronic participation. They don't amplify within the room. We can try to speak louder so you can hear us, but
Yeah.
I will point out that technically the public's not allowed in this meeting space right now, but we're not gonna, there's a miscommunication.
I did mention that it was via Zoom for
But
the public.
we're not gonna ask anybody to leave or anything like that, but, so let's continue the conversation. So does anybody have any questions for Molly?
I mean, my big one was just sounds like there's not a decision for the select board to make on the first part of renaming Village Drive to just continuing Franklin Park West. Is that just, that's correct, right?
Yeah,
From what
I wanted to just keep everybody in the loop because it is a big change, and I know it is going to cause a struggle for a lot of homeowners, which we don't want to happen. But I mean, once we get it done correctly, hopefully it will never have to happen again.
Okay, so is it the consensus of the board that moving forward we would like to try to rename the two roads that Molly's got marked here in green and blue, so that they meet our acceptance standards if we ever do a phased takeover of this development? Or would we like to leave that up to the homeowners, or how would we like to approach that?
I think the only concern I have is if the developer decided not to have us take it over. It sounds like that's the direction, but I feel like, I'm wondering if that should be the trigger for the change. And I don't know if we want to do it too far ahead, but I'm sounds like it needs to happen eventually if we were to take the road over.
Right.
And in those homeowners their addresses are not going to be changed by the Franklin Park West change. So it is, it's not like those homeowners are going to be necessarily well, that's not true. The folks that are on Franklin Park West now, if their driveways are facing in towards the new roads, then their addresses would change twice.
So are both of
Thinking
these
of the
new roads
sunset ones.
changing regardless?
So there were two options. Like one, which really should happen, is the Franklin Park West into Village Drive. And if we're unable to do the two road names, then those those homes on the outside would get new numbers for Franklin Park West. So, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. Sorry, so 9 houses at least will change numbers. But if we do the two roads, then everything but Garden Circle would have to change. But those houses on the outside wouldn't be Village Drive; they would be whatever road name they choose.
Would it be possible to have the new road named Village Drive?
Would that be? Yeah.
I believe so. I can double check with the state.
I'm
I
just saying
think that
if
would work.
that were the case, those folks, their address would still be Village Drive.
They would have a different number though.
Yeah.
I understand, but at least the street name wouldn't change in that respect. Just trying to think of the
Right, yeah.
least amount of change here.
Right. So the one marked in blue could remain, be changed to Village Drive, and then the one marked in green would.
I know in the past when emails came up in 2017, It was talked about having the green one be Daisy Lane or Daisy Road.
Go ahead, Mayor.
I know you wanted to have this conversation without input, but I was part of that process in 2017. And I could fill in a few blanks if you would give me 5 minutes.
I can allow 3 for our
Fine.
participation.
And then, sorry, before everyone speaks, if we're gonna open it up to the public, you just have to state your name.
My name is Joan Wood.
You're the manager of the HOA, treasurer?
No, I'm on the board for the Master Association for Village at Franklin Park.
Okay, thank you. Just for our minutes.
You can actually, Joan, if you wouldn't mind, just come up to the front chair here so we can hear. This microphones work pretty well, but they don't carry that far back.
Joe, right here.
Yep, that's great.
Back when we went through this in 2017, there was discussion around multiple points. One was what direction the garages faced. And there was a theory that if a garage faced a location, that made it a street. But we have at least 6 homes where the front door faces the street and the back door faces the driveway. The garage faces the driveway. So speaking with Tyler at the state 911 office, he has no problem with leaving all those shared driveways as driveways, not to call them streets. Because on the front of a house, if you're, we'll say 25 Sunrise Drive, and on the back of your house is going to be Daisy Lane, that's much more confusing.
Well, I think.
Try to be a UPS driver.
Well, I think if we were to make that change, there would be no number assigned to Franklin Park West Road, which is currently Village Drive. You would just have the address for Daisy Lane, or, I think we were just discussing making what would be Daisy Lane, we could actually name Village Drive, now that that name would no longer be in use.
Village Drive, you're suggesting making it Village Drive all the way to Route 7?
No, so what's now Village Drive, that begins
Starts at the rail trail.
Right, so we, to meet state 911 standards,
Yep.
we've got to change that to Franklin Park West Road, all the way
Because
through.
the road from Route 7 to the rail trail is
Right.
Franklin Park West Road.
Yes, and since there's not an actual vehicular intersection that gives you the ability to change the name of the road,
I understand
it
that.
should have continued
Yeah.
that way anyway. So what Molly had, I don't want to say suggested, but brought to light is if we're changing Village Drive to Franklin Park West Road, we could make one of the shared driveways Village Drive now, and have your 911 number assigned to Village
No,
Drive.
that
No.
would make it even worse.
It's a courtyard, more or less.
Yeah, it's a driveway that's shared.
Okay. I will say that in
And that was also approved by your fire chief.
about a year ago, I permitted a project in another town, and there was 2 homes on a shared driveway, and for E911 purposes, I had to name the shared driveway.
Well, I have the letter from, if I'd known that I was gonna need to bring everything, because I asked what was gonna be presented tonight, never got an answer. I would have brought the letter from Tyler that I was given almost 5 years ago.
Well, it sounded like whatever happened 5 years ago wasn't good enough to the point where it needs to be redone
It was
now.
approved by the state at that point.
Right.
And it's
It was also-
subsequently been changed though, Joan, that's what we're trying to explain.
That's fine, Carrie. But I'm also thinking about the fact that this community spent almost $2,000 making the changes that you requested last time. It doesn't just happen. We have to hire somebody to make these changes. If you want to call it Village Drive or Franklin Park West or whatever, one of the questions that came up, how did we get named Village Drive? Because originally, before the town took over that section of the road that was built by Pat Malone, that was just a connecting road. That's how it was listed, connecting road, because it was just a dirt road that Phil Grabody built. And it was, on a lot of the drawings, if you look at the old drawings from the town, it was called an easement to Route 7. It wasn't even clarified as being a road. It didn't become a road until Pat Malone paved it and built it to meet the town specs. And then the town took it over from Route 7 to the entrance of where the old pavilion used to be next to the rail trail. And the village of Franklin Park, maintains it from there across the rail trail and all the streets in the village.
Right.
If you wanted to continue that road into the village, because I realize, you know, the development is planned to go out for a total of 92 units, and that road will be the longest road in the development, and it's also the widest road in the development, the way it's currently designed. So, I understand the need to change that one. I don't understand the need to change driveway. They aren't streets, they aren't street width, they aren't maintained as streets. We only plow them like after a storm. We keep all our fire access and our ambulance accesses are all in front of the buildings.
So Molly, could you explain why this not doing that other route of naming the driveways would create an issue if the town were to take over maintaining this infrastructure?
Yeah, well, I can say it has more than 3 houses on it, so technically it is considered a road. Anything with 3 or more houses on it needs to be named. So if the town did take it over, it would have to have a name on it. And
Even if the addresses weren't physically assigned to it, or would you then have to make that change?
When the front door of the house faces the street.
well, this is only development that rule is for. I mean, there's no other development. It's all based on driveways.
So how many other developments in town have you changed the addresses on?
I will tell you, we have a list that we are working on.
No, how many have you done?
Ma'am, I'm gonna interrupt here. So the crux of the issue is if we don't name the driveways and we decide to take the road over in the future and maintain all the infrastructure in the development, which I think is everybody's goal in the future. I would believe the association.
You won't be plowing driveways.
Well, if they're named as streets,
No,
No, they aren't named as streets.
so we would probably be taking over Sunrise Drive, Garden Circle, Autumn Lane, and the new Franklin Park West Road, which is currently Village
Right,
Drive.
okay, those are real streets.
But if the state 911 rule says that if a driveway has 3 or more houses on it, it needs to be named as a street, then that's the rule we'll have to follow to meet our road acceptance policy.
If the town did take the streets that I'm proposing over, even if they didn't have numbers on them, they would have to be named. So they would have to pay for a road sign.
So,
I'm sorry, 2 road signs.
so you don't have to have the number to whatever the name of the shared driveway is.
No, but if they are named, and since the driveways are going that way or facing that road, it makes sense that the numbers should be that way because now the main road is where the driveway is facing.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to add or any questions for Molly?
Well, just trying to figure out what has to be done and what doesn't have to be done. You know, what part we have a decision on. I mean, because I guess I've always wondered, just growing up, you know, is it your driveway or is it your front door that determines what street you're on? Or is there no rule on that? You know, is there a rule in there? I went through most of it, but I was focusing on the highlighted areas.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, so it is the driveway. Like I said, they're working on, I think it's gonna be in the next month or 2, they're gonna pass like a new law, a new rule for developments where in certain situations the front door, if there's access to the road, it could be used for that number. But I'm saying if the town takes us over, we will have to name those 2 roads, and if the driveways are facing that way and it's a named road, the numbers would have to be based on that road.
Are you saying that those shared driveways that currently do not have street names because they're the width of a car are going to become streets?
If the town takes them over, they will have to become.
And the town will maintain them?
If the town takes over, I believe they maintain it.
Then why don't you postpone action on this until the town decides if they're going to take over all the streets at
Well,
Village Franklin Park?
So the crux of the issue is there are 9 houses on Village Drive now that are going to be renumbered to Franklin Park West Road no matter what.
Yep.
So if we're gonna have this conversation in 5 to 10 years of taking over, the first and maybe the first and second phase of the GSD development, which is the approach we've taken in other developments like Harborview, we've taken it 1 or 2 phases at a time as the infrastructure has been built out. We would then have to implement what Molly's saying with the shared driveways. We'd have to name them to meet our road acceptance policy.
Would you at least look at them before you do it? Because that is what changed everybody's mind on the board at that time.
So, as I mentioned in my email, I would like to meet with you and other members of the HOA or the community, and go over everything as well. So that would include me coming up to seeing the road.
And I've seen, just because I've seen them, they are very narrow in feel.
They're shared driveways, I'll say again that the 2 private roads that had the name in Highgate are 12-foot wide gravel shared driveways, but they had to be named, and the 2 dwellings on the shared private drive had to be 911 address to the name of the private drive to meet the state standards. And that's just might be something that's changed between 2003, 2004 today. I don't know that this would be permitted the way it's designed today. Well, yes, okay. So
Can I say one other thing? Sorry.
absolutely.
So the Franklin Park West, those houses do have to be changed. What I'm trying to do is save the community a struggle in the future if the town does take it over.
Oh, trust me, you're not gonna save us a struggle. You have no idea what my inbox looks like, because that's how we communicate because of COVID. I probably have 40 emails from people, and they are all over the place. We're talking a community 55 and older. The average age in our community is 81 years old. We had a week's notice about this meeting, and nobody would tell us what was really going to happen until I got a hold of Tyler.
Okay, well, I've been in contact with Tyler for quite a while now.
I understand that, but if
And I made
you
it
could've
clear
shared-
that I was going to meet with you after this meeting. So my job was to inform the select board and the town.
Are you going to act on it tonight?
No, I don't think that was ever the intent.
Well, sorry, as I was saying, so I can finish real quick. Those houses have to be renumbered.
I hear that.
I know, I'm just trying to save you the struggle. If the town does take it over, we're gonna have to go through this all over again.
Yeah, well, I need to do a budgetary change for our homeowners. I also do the budget. And bill people for their dues. They love me down there. But if I'm going to have to do all these changes, order road signs, all that stuff, I want a commitment from the town that they're going to take the roads over at some point. It might not be this year, it might not be next year, but at some point. And I want to know what it's going to cost to have the road signs made. Because if I do it as a homeowner, it's going to be a lot more expensive than if the town does it. I want some help.
So we have in the past purchased signs and culverts and whatnot at a small scale at our cost and to save the taxpayer money. And I think that if you work directly with the public works director through the town manager or director of operations with the public works director, we could help you purchase the signs at our cost. That is something that we can do.
But I want you to know all of you will be getting a lot of emails from a lot of people, especially about naming driveways, streets.
Right, and I would pass on that, we didn't create the 911 regulations.
No, I understand, but I also have the note right here from Tyler saying it's not necessary to change it.
From 2017.
No, this week.
So it's not necessary that we change the driveways today to meet the current standards. If the town were to ever accept this infrastructure as public infrastructure, that change would have to be made then.
Well, then we'd be saving so much money on plowing snow, we could probably afford to make all the changes ourselves.
So
So
I'm
the
okay.
idea is, if we're gonna go through half of it, we should just bite the bullet and do the whole thing now. That way, when we're ready to
You're
take.
biting my retirees' limited income to pay for this.
Chair, I'd like to speak for a minute.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Alan, what's the minimum width of the road, requirement of the road in order for the town to take it over? Do we have a minimum width?
I'd have to look at our town ordinance. Our narrowest road is probably 20 feet wide.
Because I just Googled that and measured it. It's like 15.85 in between the houses. Like, I can't believe that we take over a road that's less than 16 feet wide.
Well, it's not just the width of the road, it's all the sharp corners.
But like, just looking at it, like, I don't think.
Now, I don't know that we'd be taking over the maintenance of the driveway. We
You
would
are
have-
if you name it a street.
We would be taking,
Mhm.
we would be taking over Autumn Lane, Sunrise Drive, Garden Circle, and then the continuance for Franklin Park West.
It sounds like if we don't take that over, there's no need to name it though.
I think there probably still would be to meet state requirements.
But if we're sending emergency vehicles to Daisy Lane, but the plowed section is not Daisy Lane, it's not maintained by us, how is emergency vehicles going to get there if they're using 911?
It'd be the same as they would now, I would say.
But wouldn't that
No,
be
now they go to the
confusing,
front
though?
door.
They go to the front door now.
Yep,
How do they get to your front door, ma'am? if
we
you
haven't
don't
plowed
mind
out, we have it cleaned out. It's easier to get in the front door than it is like say you wanted to get behind those buildings that Pat Malone built, and you wanted to go to the furthest one with an ambulance and go in the back. You have to drive in, turn left, and go all the way back.
Yeah.
It's a long haul. But if you wanna go into that same house from the street, it's a 15-foot walk.
The state 911 standards.
It's a lot easier to move a stretcher in that way.
It
So,
just seems to me there's a
You have
furrow of
part
snow
of our
along
road
that curb line
policy,
right
if I'm
now.
not wrong, is you have-
So I don't know if I-
There's openings for the sidewalk.
So the idea is get it in compliance.
so I'm okay with just doing the Franklin Park West to Village Drive. I mean, it's not gonna be any more or any less work for me. I mean, if the town does take this over in the future,
Then it'll all have to be addressed again.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I
Well,
will.
I mean, the developer, the landowner is gonna have to work with the town. We don't just, it makes it almost sound random. We don't offer to take roads over unless the developer is actively following the rules and the ordinance we have and the standards like Jonathan's referencing. So it could very well be that we can't take over those smaller driveways, but
Right.
the main roads, yes, and they all need to be compliant. Because I think what Brendan was alluding to is we do have some ordinances that require any road that has over, 2 homes to be named and things like that. So today, I don't know
What
how
would be
wide that
easier?
road is.
Rebuilding all those driveways to
So-
meet requirements
So,
or
ma'am,
adjusting the ordinance?
I'll go back to the shared driveways I just built, where the 2 homes that are on each driveway have 911 address.
I
Per the name of
understand
the
that.
shared driveway. They'll never be taken over. They're 12-foot wide gravel roads. They'll never be taken over. You still have to meet the state 911 standards to be permitted. So part of our road acceptance policy, if I'm not wrong, is that you have to be in total compliance with E911 for the town to accept you. So if those driveways are supposed to be named in order to meet 911 standards fully, we wouldn't be able to take that road over and meet our own policy in the future. And what Molly's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Molly, is if the 9 or so houses that are gonna have to change no matter what, are gonna do it, we might as well work with Tyler at the state. And of course, Molly and maybe the director of operations or somebody else can accompany Molly and have a meeting with you all and decide how, if we should address the shared driveways now, get them entirely in compliance with the state E911 standards. That way, if in the near future, you or your master association request that phase 1 be taken over by the town, that's not an issue. Now, there's probably a hard way to do it in naming those driveways, and there's probably an easier way. And we don't know that. We didn't write the rule. If this was something that came out of our planning commission, we would all know the standards backwards and forwards. But we can commit to having Molly work with you to come up with the easiest way possible for you all to make sure that in the future, no one has to go through this again and the road's ready to be taken over and it meets that 911 standard. Now, it's probably not going to be the easiest thing in the world, and we understand that there's a cost to it, and that it's a 55 and older community, and I appreciate you sharing the median age of your residents, because that's impactful to us when we hear that. We will have our public works director work with you to get the cheapest cost on signage that we can get, and the town manager, I think if you would ask her to maybe even volunteer to have the signs installed, we might even entertain that free of charge. But
Has
that's a
any one of
question
you
for
been
the
around
manager.
up there?
Yeah, I have. My uncle.
I think these, instead of calling them different street, I would call them extension if you have to name it. Like
That's very possible too.
like Franklin
Yeah. we can
Park
do that.
Extension. Then these, like Sunrise Extension. It's be a lot better, you don't have to rename it any more than that.
Sir, just for the purpose of our minutes, could you just say your name?
Gail Messier, she knows me.
Gail Messier? Okay, thank you, sir. I think you'll find the easiest way is you work with Molly, whatever it ends up being. But we just want to make sure that if you or someone else in the future comes forward on behalf of the homeowners association and says, phase one, we believe it's entirely compliant with your regulations, we want it to be taken over as a public road, that we're not having to change anyone's address in the process. And that it's as simple as what we just went through with Loomis Lane and Ethel Court off of Lower Newton Road. We just took that over as a public road. It didn't meet our standards. The homeowners association saved up over, I want to say $40,000, had it all repaid by a local paving contractor, and then it met our standards. We took it over. We've actually got a deed for that transfer in our packet tonight, just for our own review to see how that came full circle. And if you look at our public works department's doing an excellent job maintaining that road. And we want
They
that
do a
to
great
be,
job maintaining, the road that Pat Malone paved.
and we want to, make sure that you're in a position to be able to have that happen within this development, and that there's no lingering issues that we ignored along the way of, renaming. And if you decide after you speak with Molly that you want to do the absolute bare minimum and deal with this issue further down the road when you decide to have the road taken over, that's an option, as far as I hear. Go ahead, sir.
If you bring those extensions or call to code, you're gonna have to take half of our driveway down we back out of the garage to make it.
So we
And
wouldn't,
half of our lawn, which is about the size of in between here.
we wouldn't be widening or changing any of the infrastructure. Just naming the road as is part of the state's E911 requirements.
So I would suggest extension, and then keep in mind that there's additional homes that are gonna be built the same way starting next year. So you better get your wheels going and straightened out before they get going.
I have been in touch with the developer. It was just sold to Tyler Stanislaus. So
Either they gotta open them up a little bit more and,
Yep, so I have been in touch with him.
because it's,
I'm not a developer, I don't know the process, so I'm not changing his process at all. I will talk to him about my part with numbering and see what he wants to do, but
So we usually have maybe one or two people on a Zoom meeting, and as you see our screen here, we've got probably a dozen or so people. We understand that this isn't an easy process, and that it's a hardship for those that aren't well acquainted with technology, and we don't take it lightly. As I said in the previous email, if we could, as your representatives in the town government, say, we're going to leave it alone because things seem to be working and we don't want to put anybody through a hardship, I think we would entertain that option very seriously, but our hands are cuffed. So we'll have the state coordinator, Molly, a member of our administrative staff, and our public works department work on this project with you to make sure you get as much support as we can offer.
I hope that seriously includes driving through the area, walking the area, to see what you're really talking about.
Oh, definitely. I mean, yeah.
And since you as a select board are gonna be making that final decision, you all need to be there too. You need to be looking at this.
Well, if we need to warn a special
Because there's gonna
meeting-
be a total of 92 units in this development, and it probably 3/4 of those have these shared driveways.
Yeah.
And if I was gonna be driving an ambulance and going to Acorn Circle, and it's a little 10-foot wide driveway with a foot of snow on it, and I had a choice between getting my ambulance stuck there or going in the front door of that house, I'd go in the front door.
we never had an ambulance go to the back.
Never.
Never.
They all
They
go to
always
the
come
front
to the
doors.
front. It's very easy to open the door and it's right there.
Yep.
Right. So
And
let's,
also keep in mind the sidewalks. This is gonna be a problem, because I believe you people are gonna be continuing on to the sidewalks for these streets. Our streets are all sidewalks, so that's another place that has to be cleaned.
So it sounds like there's a discussion that needs to be continued on.
I just like that question again of, do we have leeway on the driveway or the front door? Can it be either one, or does it have to be the
That's,
driveway? That's all. Because you make a good point. I'm thinking of an ambulance coming, and it's a
Well-
the address is based on a driveway name that we are not responsible for cleaning that driveway because it's not a road.
So is the end scenario
That could be
where
tough.
they would be addressed to the front doors like they currently are, but the shared driveway is still named? Is that something that happens?
Yeah,
That's what happened last time.
that's what we would like. Right now, it's a little bit of a gray area. I'm still learning because they are updating
So
their
if you did
policy.
Sunrise Drive Extension in that little, loop there,
Mhm.
they would still be addressed to the old Village Drive, which would be Franklin Park, and then, the standard Sunrise Drive for the front doors, right?
If we named it, the numbers would be based off that road. So if we named that Sunrise Extension, then the numbers would,
And
the
I can
address would
see,
change to Sunrise.
This is why you need to be there to see it. You're crossing the rail trail. We have a duplex to the right as you come across the rail trail. The front doors of that duplex face what's now Village
I've
Drive.
been up there several times.
The back doors, where the garages are, face the shared driveway.
Yeah.
That can't be Sunrise Drive Extension on the back and Village Drive on the front. Where do you send the ambulance?
Well, if their address is, I'm gonna keep the numbers just so I'm not making anything
Yep.
up. If it was 20 Sunrise Drive Extension, they would go in the front. They'd go to Sunrise Extension.
So they would be going in the back way.
They'd be going in the back way where there's no real easy
real-
access for
Right.
Well,
And then-
that's why we would have to schedule a meeting and
Yeah.
and go check it out.
So
This is a serious problem for an elderly community.
well, I would think for any community it'd be a big issue, but we get that
I
it's.
mean, we have an ambulance up there at least once a week.
So we need to continue this conversation and offer as much support as we can, and understand that it'll probably take some time, and if we're gonna get it right, we should explore all options and
I understand that. Get you completely.
Yeah.
However, when we did this before, that's what we went through. Everybody was happy, the state was happy, the town was happy, and now we're talking changes again.
All over again.
And I don't wanna see that happen again in 5 more years. Or if it's gonna happen again in 5 more years, let's only change what we absolutely have to change right now.
So we hear that loud and clear.
Right.
There's a part that the town played in creating the situation. I'm sure that we regret our role in it, but.
And I understand those things happen. I mean, it was development that was started in a hayfield in the middle of nowhere.
And
No,
it's a very different design.
It
from
is.
what you normally see in rural Vermont. So
Yep.
it's a very it looks like it belongs in Essex in a good way.
Yeah.
It's a nice
Yeah.
it's a very nice community.
Actually, there is one almost identical to it in Essex.
So and we appreciate you coming down and giving us the information that you've provided, and we just ask
So
that
we're
you,
on hold until this is all discussed.
yeah, we're gonna work with Molly and
Yep.
the state coordinator, and
So we're gonna be notified when you people make a decision, so that,
you'll be
We're gonna have a meeting first to go over all the issues
yeah,
on site.
on site, oh, good.
and if we need to have a couple select board members present to keep the board informed, I can make myself available, and I'm sure another board member can join me. It's
So
I-
Brendan.
Yep.
Just so you know, when this all started, it was the developers that named the roads and issued the numbers, and it was okay with the state at that time.
There's things that a lot of things have changed.
The town, the town was not at fault.
So let's continue the discussion from a really a place of positivity, even though that it's not a happy thing that we're going through this again. But let's go hand in hand and figure it out and make it as painless as we possibly can, even though it probably won't do much. There's no good way to put this. It's not fun for anybody, and we definitely don't love the fact that we have to play a part in causing this hardship for you. But we'll do what we can to help.
So this could drag on to next summer.
I would
Took
not.
4 months last time.
It'll probably be. I would set a reasonable expectation for time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to say that in the past, the assistant assessor was only part-time, so he was very focused on new development.
Mhm.
I'm full-time, so I have more time to take this on as well as my other jobs. So it should not take 4 months.
And you're gonna see
I want it to
too,
take as long as it needs to for everybody to be happy.
yes.
Yeah.
I want you people to see that the way it is now, the snowbanks are about as high as here. So this means that if there's another snowstorm, they're gonna have to move it. This is another thing, we don't have the place to, we won't have the place to move it except in the center. And so it has to be moved. It won't be, they won't be able to plow it the way it
Yeah,
is.
you know, it's a development that, can't remember what they call it, it's a cluster development.
P.E.G.
Yeah.
So all the buildings are like 30 feet apart, there's no place to put anything.
Yeah,
So like when you
footprint
plow
lots,
Sunrise Drive, we plow across Village Drive and put it out in the field.
Yeah.
Cause that's the only place to put the snow. We give up one of our sidewalks in the wintertime so we can pile snow on it. You know, in our development, everybody likes their lawn to look nice, I just wanna know where the snow's gonna go.
Oh, I hear ya.
So just quick question on the back as I'm looking at it. If an ambulance pulled up to the back of the house, is there a door or would they have to go through the garage?
No, this is,
There's a door
Okay.
on
Just
some of
curious.
them.
well, the other one's a sliding door in the
Yeah,
front, but the other one's a regular
yeah,
door.
like in the triplex, it's a slider,
Yeah.
but they don't all shovel their patios off.
I think
I
I
guess
can,
they'd have to go through the garage, which means they'd have to move the car out of the way, and if you got somebody laying on the
I've driven
ground there-
through many times up there, but I just can't.
Yeah,
follow
they're
it.
all
So-
different, that's one of the things that makes it
Yeah.
I think I
appealing.
speak for everyone when I say that we're all probably on our own gonna, to satisfy our own curiosity and
Yeah.
be better informed, we'll all be taking trips out that way in the near future. So
Sounds good.
we're definitely looking to play our part in making it right and making sure that this doesn't have to happen again,
Oh God, I hope not.
so. Well, thank you very much. Does
Thank you.
anybody on the Zoom call have anything they'd like to add before we move on?
I'm Tyler Stanislaus. I'd just like to interject quickly. So when you're talking about the roads you possibly might take over in the future, you're talking about the main roads that run down each side of this development, and the stuff in the center doesn't meet the state standard or the town standard. So that's something that you wouldn't be taking over, correct?
Right, you think you're looking at Sunrise Drive, Autumn Lane, Garden Circle, but not the shared driveways because of the width restrictions and whatnot.
And the new Village Drive, which is essentially Franklin Park West Road, will continue all the way to essentially where the right of way is hitting 105, or
Well, it
where
doesn't
it
go
dead
all the way
ends
up
there.
there.
He
So
has an
it's,
easement that far.
It's currently Village Drive, we're gonna change it to Franklin Park West, that's the major trigger for this.
But that main road would be the same thing all the way. So let's
Right.
just say you got 3,000 feet of road there. And then it loops back around in a circle
Yeah,
to
3 feet
areas
off
like
the whole
Garden
river
Circle and
ends.
whatever. Those primary roads
Yep.
you would look at potentially taking over, but the inner ones like Sunset Drive and things like that that don't meet the standards would still be up to HOA and things like that.
That's
That's where
probably
we build.
right,
Okay.
having
It
not
comes up
thoroughly
here and it
reviewed it,
ends right
Tyler, I think
there.
you're right.
And of course, this is that second circle that isn't built yet.
Does anybody
I
have
just
any-
wanted clarification to make sure that the main stuff
Right away.
would be taken care of.
This property.
Yeah, I mean, we
This
can't
property.
bind a future select
We
board.
can't
One
take
more.
minutes with 4 people talking, I'm sorry, it's really hard. Go ahead, Brendan, sorry.
So, lost my train
I'm
of thought
sorry.
here. So, whatever meets our road acceptance standard will be eligible to be taken over. We as a board cannot bind a future select board. Like, there's no scenario where we would be able to sign something that said in 5 years we'll take it over. But we can help you position yourself to meet all of the requirements and fully understand that a different board in the future could still say no even if you meet all the requirements, because we could have a staffing restriction or an equipment restriction in public works that prohibit that. But it's our goal.
But that's just something I wanted to be able to clarify, because I'm sure at some point there's gonna be a board meeting, so I can discuss this with
Yeah, and if there's anything that's done, if you've got a full loop that's completed that meets our standards, then bring it forward. We just accepted a private
That's
development.
just what I wanted to clarify and make sure, like, I understand inside Sunrise Drive or whatever it is, because there's a bunch of different names and I'm not quite familiar with them all. But I'm looking at the plan right now. pretty much the center part won't be taken care of, but the outer edges possibly could be taken over by the town because they need to pay 76.
Mhm.
Yep. As long as you build them right.
And keep all your permits
I
current.
didn't build it, so I don't know if I don't know if it's built right. I know the stuff in the future will be.
There we go. Well, all right. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add before we move on? And again, we appreciate your participation and listening in, and we take absolutely no pleasure in this scenario. We just want to help make it as painless as possible. So, okay.
Bill's on the call.
Okay, so why don't we move back? Given that conversation took a little bit more time than we allotted, we've got the report and the PowerPoint presentation in front of us about the 2021 equalization study. Do we have any specific questions for Bill or anything that we'd like him to explain?
Bill, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm on. You can hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So Bill, if you've got any, broad strokes you'd like to go over for the purpose
Sure.
of the minutes, just know that we've read
So
what you sent us.
Obviously, we all know that market values have gone up significantly in the last couple of years, the pandemic or whatever reasons they are. The real problem we're going to have at the state level moving forward is finding reappraisal firms when we're required to reappraise. There's only really 3 or 4 active firms in the state of Vermont, and we're looking at 150 plus towns that are going to have to reappraise. One of the conversation I had with one of our district advisors recently brought a little bit of light to it, is that if we do get the order to reappraise next summer, then more than likely, all we have to do is we have to have a contract in place and a plan, and that meets the statute requirements. So theoretically, we could have to reappraise and not do it till 2025 or even 2026, as long as we have a plan in place, unless the state decides to do something more proactive to change the way the laws and the statutes are for ordering reappraisals. But that's the one piece of good news I can give you.
So, have we done a market check on what it might cost to complete a reappraisal to make sure that we have the monies on hand where we would get it?
Sure. We do have the monies on hand. It's roughly right now, and I'm going to kind of put that in quotes, right now, typically reappraisals are running about $100 per property. So around $400,000 for the town. And we do, I believe, have that money set aside.
Yes, we do.
Yep. The one problem that we might run into, Brendan, and the select board, is that I was speaking with a gentleman that's going to be reappraising Weybridge for me last week. And he said one of the reappraisal firms recently bid a project at almost double that rate. So, again, market forces, capitalism at its best. These guys are starting to increase their prices. So again, if we have to reappraise and, complete the reappraisal in 3 or 4 years, I would hope that the monies would be there to be able to cover that, plus any additional increases that we might see just because of the supply demand issue.
So knowing that this is coming, we'll have to monitor things like our fund balance. Maybe take, if say our fund balance available to return to the taxpayers to buy down the property tax rate is $250,000 next year, and we know that we're roughly 150 short, maybe we could pull from that and transfer it to the reappraisal fund if we needed to. There's ways to be creative and monitor it to make sure that the monies are on hand.
We get roughly about $80,000 a year.
Okay, so that number, okay, that's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
So does anybody have any questions for Bill from the study results or his letter?
I was gonna say, Bill, this is Brian. Sounded like in your opinion, the idea of going ahead and trying to move now is not a good idea is not a good idea, correct? Better to wait until we cross the 85 threshold and keep our fingers crossed that it goes to 80. Is that kind of correct?
Sure. Yeah, so the biggest concern I would have is with respect to that common or coefficient of dispersion number, Brian. That number is 13.12. When that number starts getting high, that's when you start worrying about inequitable assessments, people being treated unfairly in different developments, different areas of towns, different locations, waterfront versus non-waterfront, and so forth. That number at 13 is still pretty good. And until that becomes, say, 16 or 17, we don't have much to worry about as far as making sure everybody's being assessed fairly and equitably.
Makes sense, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments before we move on? Okay. We have a jurisdictional opinion for FCIDC from Act 250, Gary.
Thank you, Bill. I think we're good.
Thank
you guys. Have a
nice night.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Grant. I'm sorry, no, you're right, Act 250. I have no comments requested or required there. The item that we added was, Emily became aware today after doing some digging that there's a grant due at the end of the month. And before she's planning to be gone for a week, so that's kind of why there's a bit of a rush here. We want to apply for a grant for Tanglewood, and she's hopeful that it would require very little match, but at the most it might require a 50% match. But we had been planning to spend some of our utility fund on that. But per our new policy, we have, I have paperwork, but I don't want you distracted by the facts. We are requesting that the select board approve applying for this grant, and we're hoping to be successful in getting the grant. And the price tag could vary. Obviously, we didn't know exactly how much, but we're hopeful. And we really would like to apply for this grant. And it's good for construction, basically, at this point.
So the HOA is willing to provide 25% of any match.
Yeah, they've been extremely compliant and willing to work with us on this for a number of years.
So the total amount that you're requesting that could come from the utility is 500,000, or is that the?
That's the
It'd be
total.
250 would be the most. Again, Emily they didn't have the details on the program yet, and she's going to be out at your next meeting, so she wanted approval so she could get the application in before the next meeting. The whole project's likely to cost about 500,000. That's why we're requesting it. If, like she said, they're still determining what the match rate will be, but if the most our match would be 250. Of that, 25% of it would be covered by the Tanglewood homeowner. So our match would be 75% of 250, which is 187 or something like that thousand.
Right.
And we've got that money in the utility
It
fund
would-
now to handle projects like this.
Yeah.
And we were planning to allocate utility funding to this issue.
We were.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have about 300,000 a year that can go into construction and design, so that would come from that piece. And this would actually flow into next fiscal year as well, because we're just completing design on this project. We've got the engineering out, and then Emily, with a successful grant application, would go out to bid on the construction of it.
So
And because the new policy you guys put in place in October, that any grant the town applies for that could require more than $5,000 for a local match needs a select board approval.
okay, so let's. I think the cleanest way to do it would be to have the board approve it, pending figuring out what the local match is going to be and finishing figuring out the form, and then authorizing me to sign it on behalf of the board at that time. Does that sound about right?
Well, I mean, what would be the condition that you wouldn't approve it? Because what we're saying is at the top end.
Right, it's just the
Project
form's
would be-
not completed yet.
Yep, I
until that
understand.
until
But I
that
mean, is
info.
there anything else that concerns you?
No. I
Okay,
don't think that's it.
perfect.
Just explain me the numbers again. So the 500 is the total.
We're applying for a
Total
$500,000 grant,
Yep.
and they haven't let the rules out on it. Some grants are 80%, so we only have to give 20%,
Mhm.
and some are 50%. Emily called them today to figure out what this was, and they didn't have that determination yet. The state's been really slow to get money out.
Whatever I just want to make sure I understand. So whatever our percent is, it would be 75%
percent
of that.
of whatever that
because
is.
The HOA would do 25%.
Yeah. So Tanglewood's known about this problem for a long time and have been saving up
Yeah.
to do this work. So they,
Gotcha.
of all of our developments that have stormwater issues, they're probably the most fiscally prepared to.
They are.
So would this be the only grant that's,
We tried one in the fall that we didn't get
okay.
for
Right.
this one. So this is a new round of
It
same
is.
grant, but a new round of funding. There's, but just for an example, with my hat on, we gave the agency of ag $30 million to give out to farmers to help. They've only given out $5 million so far. So across state government, they just haven't been able to get out the money that fast. So there's still probably tens of millions of dollars of state water quality funding that we're going after. I mean, we go after every bit of dollar we can. We've got, just a reminder, we got $200,000 grant for Clyde Allen Drive. So we've got $250,000 to start the design work and land acquisition for their piece, and then we got a $40,000, I believe, design grant for Gricebrook. So we are making some pretty good progress in the first year of
Sounds
the
like it.
utility. So, but this is our top priority project, obviously, from a flow restoration plan. Our phosphorus control plan will be back in April, but we're convinced this will probably be the 1 or 2 project. And we just know the issues that neighborhood has had to deal with, that we want to get it done for them.
Okay, so does anyone want to make a motion to authorize me to sign this, this form and approve the grant request when it's completed?
So moved.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Well, thanks to Emily for figuring that out so we could get that done tonight.
Could
And
we,
Yeah, thank you.
well, I'm sure you will notify us.
Yeah, we'll let you know at
Get
the
a
next
grant.
meeting. This
No.
announcement just literally came out this afternoon, and Emily's like, "I'm going on vacation before their next Lord." It's like she literally got this to us at like 3:45. I'm like, "Get us what you can, and we'll try to get an approval, and
Yeah.
we'll update them the next one. Keep it rolling."
Anything to add to town manager report before we move on to schedule?
I do not have anything right now.
Okay, so our next select board meetings, our regular meetings are Wednesday, February 23rd, and we're gonna have a special start to tour the new town hall. You'll get an email today. I think it's at 5 o'clock, if you can make it. And then we have another regular meeting Monday, March 7th at 6:30 p.m. And then we have our informational hearing for town meeting day, and then this, which is also a dual special meeting for our equity and inclusion discussion scheduled for Monday, February 28th at 6:30 p.m. So town offices will be closed Monday, February 21st for President's Day, which is why our meeting that would have been on the 21st has been moved to the 23rd. Does anybody have anything else to add under schedule?
Just to clarify, the meeting at the new town hall is really, at this point, only for the select board because it's an active construction site. It's not open to the public. We will absolutely have an open house. And we plan to still have one for our DPW garage, which we were not able to because of COVID. But
Correct.
Just a nuts and bolts question. So, Google Calendar, I've got my thing set up to the whatever iCal feed or whatever.
yeah,
So a lot of the ones like Monday the 21st still show up there. Is there a way that we can just
move it.
move it so it's the 23rd? I don't mean to
That-
sound lazy, but
No,
I love
well,
it when
I
it
mean,
just happens automatically. It's
I think that's
wonderful.
really a Jen question. I'm not sure how to do that, if we can do that, but we can try. She usually,
Perfect. It would help at home too, so it doesn't appear to my wife that I have way more meetings than I actually have.
that's weird.
That would be good too, so, thank you.
Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add under schedule? Okay, so I'm gonna skip my report in the interest of time. So does anybody have anything they'd like to add under other business before we enter executive session for contractual and personnel reasons?
Yes. Sorry. So the ballots are in
Awesome.
and we will hopefully be getting them all out this week.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Great update, Anna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So if no one has anything else,
I got one thing. I just want to say thanks to everybody that kept the roads clear
Mm.
through the past
Yeah.
storm.
perfect.
It's a lot of work.
We'll pass the word on. The crew was busy and stayed faithful out there.
I was talking to a local plowing contractor that does a lot of work for affordable housing complexes. And that first big storm of the winter, he lost half of his crew. They quit about halfway through it. They said, "This is not for me. It's not what I was told," and they did not come to work. And
Oh, no.
so we had to dig everyone out. They were operating 24 hours a day with the skeleton crew they had left. So just gives you a little bit of insight into what these guys are dealing with. That it's not for everyone.
Definitely.
Good comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, if no one has anything else to add under other business, if someone would like to make a motion to enter executive session.
Sure, I'll make a motion to go into executive session to discuss legal, contractual, or personnel issues where premature general public knowledge of subject matter would place the town or person involved at substantial disadvantage, and further move to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss legal, contractual, or personnel issues under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1, Vermont statutes, and to invite the town manager.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Have a good night.